24 volts, it's not moving. Just gonna let it run for a while. If you have any questions, just shoot me a question. Live chat should be open. If you have any questions, the live chat's open. Yeah, I've heard it done too. Yeah, speed it up so fast like that. 1200 RPM. Staying at 24.8 volts, full out, 1200 RPM, it's not budging. Running at 24 volts and about 100 milliamps. It's not budging. Seems to run the most efficient at about 1,000 RPM. So when I shut it off, the thing will go back up to 25 volts. It's sitting at 24.8 volts for God knows how long. On the weekend I'm going to do a long test and see how much the drain is, but the way it's going right now, the way I see it, it won't be draining much current because of the spark gap switch. Yeah, I've heard of the SEG, yeah. Magnum motor, yeah. I've seen it. I've never built one. It's too difficult to get the magnets that you need for it. You have to be custom cut into the round tubes. You need a full machine shop to do that. I've never tried to make it, but you gotta do custom magnets and that gets really difficult to do. The Joseph Newman machine, I would definitely build, which this thing is pretty much like the Newman machine, just a lot smaller. I'm doing a run test to see if the motor is actually pulling the battery down. So the secret behind the motor is the spark gap switch. The spark gap switch kills the amount of current. Yeah, I don't know. I never really seen a serial machine run. Everything that I believe that works, I've actually built. Unless I build it, I don't really believe it. So I can't really knock it because I haven't built it. So I'll leave it at that. If I build it and I prove it actually does work, then I'll support it, right? But you have this motor, it works. But you have to have the right components in it. Shoot me questions. That's what I'm here for. So the key to the system as well as the piezo transducer. Hey Thomas, how's it going? Yeah, thanks for your donation, man. Thanks. Yeah, just giving it a test. Running amazing. Yeah, it's, well, 5 years I've been working on this thing. So right now it's holding at 24.8 volts, and she's not moving. It's not killing the battery. It's because of the spark gap switch in here. From, you've seen the video on my Patreon about the spark gap switch. So that's why this battery, these two batteries in parallel are not going down. Well, yeah, it's self-powering because it doesn't kill the battery. If you don't kill a battery, the battery lasts forever. So I'm not putting any extra power into the system. It's taking the power that it has and uses it to the best possible way and create extra power. So the lights are the excess power. So last night I was getting about 8.1 volts, or sorry, 8.1 watts. I was putting in 1.7 watts. So, and because the way the motor is designed, it doesn't pull a current off the battery. And because of that, the battery is just feeding the voltage coming off the battery. This motor runs on the voltage, not current. The current is generated in the coil that makes the motor run. Then the piezo accelerates that power into reactive power. So after you do that, you can dump it into a capacitor and make it into real power. Alright? Or you could dump it directly into lights to light up lights. Now, the other thing too is it's not running at 60 hertz, it's running higher. Anything that Tesla made that was over unity or excessive power is always in a higher frequency. The mistake is staying at 60 hertz. You gotta go way higher. If you go way higher, you get over unity. If you stay low, you'll never get over unity. And the other thing too is, if you work with 12 volts, it doesn't cut it. You gotta have 24, 36, 48, whatever, but 12 volts is a waste. Just multiply your batteries in parallel. I'm putting in 24.8 volts in it, and because the motor doesn't pull current, the battery doesn't die. It stays the same. It's only using the voltage potential, and that's the same thing Joseph Newman did on his motor. It ran off voltage, not current. His motor weighed 7,000 pounds, and he was using the little 9-volt batteries, 84 of them hooked up in parallel. So he had 460 volts, and he was running a 7,000-pound motor with only a current of 50 milliamps. That's it, 50 milliamps. And those 9-volt batteries could run it for over an hour. These tiny little batteries. 7,000 pounds. So it's power to mass ratio. So mine was similar to that. And same concept, just a lot smaller. I can make the coil a lot bigger. This one's over a pound. I could go 2 pounds, 3-pound coil, whatever. And I get a lot more power. This motor has torque. It's got power behind it. And it's running at 1,000 RPM. The highest I ever got this was about 4,000 RPM. Kind of scary. It hasn't budged. It's not moving. It's not cooling the battery. But it's continuously putting out 8 watts. And I'm putting in less than 1.7 watts. If it's running at 100 milliamps, it's only about 7 watts. Oh, sorry, 1.7 watts or less. Sometimes if I really dial in and go really conservative, I can run it at about 700 milliamps or less. But that 700 milliamps is not seen because of the spark gap. Every time that spark gap opens, the resistance in the circuit goes to 0. It's doing it 5 times per revolution. So every time it fires, it creates a high resistance and then it goes to 0. Every time it opens, 5 times per revolution, times that by 1,000 RPM. And that's why the battery doesn't die. That's the secret. I can't explain it any other way. It's so easy. And like I said, this motor's got mass to it. It's got torque. It's torque. It's spinning at 1,000 RPM. I could probably go, this one weighs about a pound and a half, just under 2 pounds. I could probably go to a 4 or 5 pound rotor. And it will have a lot of torque. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Can you guys hear me okay? Is my volume good? Yeah, of course. We could build it to power house for sure, because the power this thing's putting out, you put that into the capacitor, or into the capacitor, you put it to a solar charge controller, and then you get a stack of batteries that runs the inverter that runs your house. This thing will just run all the time, keep charging the batteries, just keep charging. At nighttime, you don't use your electrical too much, maybe just refrigerator or whatever. And then at that point, the batteries come back. This thing will just run on, continue to feed power to the batteries. The best part is, this thing will not stop. It runs forever. As long as batteries are good, they'll run forever. So, like good car batteries, about 5 years. So, you might have to swap out the batteries once every 5 years, which is nothing if you're not paying for hydro. So, I'm going to build a commercial version of this. It's going to be big enough like a silver piece. Show you the box. Yeah, well, Tesla, we always use spark gap. Always. Yeah. Here, I'll show you the server case that the new generator is going to go in. Similar design to what this is, but we'll just flip it around. That's the case I'm going to be putting it into. Yeah, that's the piezo transducer right there. Okay, it's got quartz crystal inside of it. It's ceramic and quartz crystal. Cool, thanks man. Thanks for becoming a member there. Thanks for the support. I'm just talking about the piezo transducer. It's 60 kilohertz, 60 watt, 40 kilohertz. It's got basically a quartz crystal compound where that dark area is. That's where, and it's mixed with the ceramic. And you got your anode here and your cathode here. It's like a sandwich. So you got the anode on top, the copper plate on the bottom. That's your cathode, and anodes on top. Every time the reactive power is generated in the coil, it dumps it into here, and then you get a violent reaction. That's the violent reaction is reactive power. Okay? And that reactive power you can dump, like Tesla says, into a capacitor. And then from the capacitor, you can do whatever you want with it. So this one's 80 volts at 4,000 microfarad. This thing will charge up in less than 20 seconds. So I could actually run a small 300 watt inverter with this. So the faster you have the reactive power being generated here going into the capacitor, you can use it. And that's what Tesla says right in his notes. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. Yeah, I hope you understand that. Yeah, it like the magic. Thanks, brother. Yeah, it has to do with the spark gap. When you understand what the spark gap does, it makes it so much more sense. So the spark gap, okay, when it's closed, all right, when it goes to open, just before the point of it opening, there's a resistance that's created on both sides. And the second you release it or you open it, the spark is created. Yeah, exactly, like the points in a car. Exactly. A resistance created. The second that resistance released, when it opens, you get the spark. Now the resistance in the spark goes to zero. And that's why the battery doesn't die. Because it's doing it so fast. It's basically, the only thing it's feeding off it is the voltage. Okay? And you're doing this at a rapid, it's within a nanosecond this takes place. Doing it 5 times, you got 5 magnets for 1 revolution. It's going high resistance, release, 0, 5 times per revolution. That's why the battery doesn't die. And then because of that, it's how this thing works. Like, yeah, it's not budging. It's staying the same. Like, been running it for about an hour now and staying the same voltage. Even if it were to go down a little bit, the amount of power that I got coming out of this, I could funnel that in through a solar controller, charge up the battery while it's running, so it's got the loop. Now it's looped. Because the first thing that kills a battery is the amount of current you pull off the battery. And it also destroys the battery. Good night, sweet. With a dynamo, well, this is pretty much like a dynamo. It's just because it's using a spark gap makes it kind of unique. It pretty much is a dynamo. If you want to look at it like that, yeah. Now I got it going through 1 full wave bridge rectifier. I'm probably going to add 2 to clean up the signal better. So if I do decide to put it into a DC capacitor, you know. Yeah, it makes it a lot better when you dump it into a DC power source. So I recommend 2 bridge rectifiers, back to back. See, right now I'm running off 2 batteries hooked up in parallel, so it's 24 volts. So what I want to do is get 4 batteries hooked up. So I have 48 volts. And now the amount of power that I'm drawing off the battery, which is very little, now you're going to divide it by 4. And it's going to be, I worked it out, it's going to be 0.005 amps coming off it. those batteries can handle a lot more than 0.005 amps. And the battery won't move, it won't budge. Like it's just starting now to move down 100 millivolts. So it's at 24.8, it's going to 24.7. So it's losing a little bit of power, but at a very, very slow rate. Very slow. I thought it was going to go to 24.7, but it's really not drawing it. Any other questions? Now what I'm going to do, it's going down to 24.7 volts, going down 0.1 volt. And about, I've been on 28 minutes, I had it running before, so it's almost an hour. It's gone down 0.1 volt. Yeah, it's still showing 24.8. It's going up and down, it doesn't want to go. Well, yeah, the one that I showed with the box, that's going to be able to power a house. So you would get a stack of batteries with an inverter, and then this thing will recharge those batteries. So it all depends what you can afford to make, right? If I get 4 car batteries, I can run 3,000 watts. So what you could add solar to it if you want. Like, if I wanted, with these little batteries, yeah, 48 volts, yeah. So what I could do, I could have a little solar panel hooked up to this, which charges the battery no problem. Because it's in 1 hour, it's pulling 0.1 volt off the battery, and that's only with 2 batteries. If I put it to 4 batteries, it'll last that much longer. So this thing could last a month. But the interesting thing about these batteries is they're lead acid. If I shut the system off, the batteries will recharge themselves. So right now it's at 24.7 volts. I'm going to shut the motor off. I'm going to go for a cigarette, come back, and I'm going to take a look at the meter and see what it says. Alright, so I'm going to do that. I want the battery to recharge itself. Now that I've taken the load off the battery, I'm going to let it sit, and I'll show you guys that lead acid batteries, after you shut off the load, it'll actually recharge itself. Not too many batteries have that quality, but the lead acid do. That's why I'm playing with those batteries. So I'm going to go for a quick smoke. Guys, stick around, or if you have to get a coffee or whatever, go to the washroom, do that. I'll be back in about 5 minutes, so just hang out, and yeah. Okay, I'm back. Alright. Just got back from a little break, so when I was running the motor for about an hour, it was at 24.9 volts when I started. I went down to about 24.7, barely 24.7 volts. So let's take a look here. Alright guys, 24.9. So the batteries recharge themselves after I shut it off. It recovers because the spark gap switch is basically eliminating the resistance in the circuit when it's drawing power off the battery, because it's firing 5 times per revolution. The battery is not being pulled current, or very little. What kills the battery is when you pull a resistance off the battery, and it's because it's firing every time the spark gap's opening, the resistance of the load goes to 0, and it's doing that 5 times per revolution. Because of that, that's why the batteries will last an incredibly long time. Now, that said, this could be hours down the road where you might have to trickle some power back into it. Very easy to do. What power you're making off this, or a bank of batteries that's running your house, you can take a little bit of that power, funnel it back into these batteries, which probably would take less than 5 minutes, and the batteries are completely recharged, and it would just continue to run and run and run and never stop. So right there, the batteries went right back up to 24.9 volts. There's a threshold of how much current you can take off that battery before the battery starts going down. When the battery starts going down, it's a result of pulling too much current off the battery. So what the spark gap's doing is eliminating that load, that resistance. Every time it fires, it goes to 0. And therefore, the motor virtually is running just on voltage, not current. The current is being created within the motor itself. In the coil, with the piezo transducer, you got that ricocheting of reactive power. And to understand what reactive power is like you get a glass and you pour a bottle of beer in it. At the bottom you have the beer, and then you got the foam on top. The foam on top is the reactive power. Best analogy I can make of it. The foam on top is reactive power. It has volume, but very little density, because it's foam. It has no density. So what Tesla says, the reactive power can be used, you dump it into a capacitor. Now the energy density of that reactive power becomes real power, not reactive anymore. And that, from the capacitor, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Put it into a full-way bridge, charge up batteries, or you can send this power from here directly to an inverter and run an inverter, and it works. So, all based on Tesla. A lot of stuff in this motor is related with Newman's work, Joseph Newman, and Robert Adams. So you got the best of all these different technologies kind of thrown into one system. So yeah, I'm going to do a longer test on the weekend. It's pretty soon I'm going to call it quits for the night, because I got to be up at 5 a.m. in the morning for work. So yeah, any questions, shoot it to me now. If you got any questions, just type in the live chat there, and I'll try to answer it as best I can for you. If you're a Patreon, go to one of our, if you're not a Patreon and you want all the schematics of this, I just posted a new schematic in the Patreon. Links are in the description below in one of my other videos. It won't be on this stream here, but go to one of my other videos, and then in the description you'll see my link for the Patreon. Donate a couple bucks to help me, continue this and buy components I need. Which I'm going to be doing the next build. I'm going to build the bigger version of this motor, which is going to be capable of running a house. So whether it's not much, you just chip you $2 in the Patreon, That's cool. I don't care, you know, I don't care if it's big or small or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Just having support, and there's a lot. I've got quite a few Patreons now, so all the Patreons, thank you so much for your donations and stuff again. Yeah, so we're going full force, and then hopefully in the next little while, I'm trying to get this hooked up. A guy I used to work with, a friend of mine that's pretty well known. I'm not going to really say who it is at this point, but apparently his laboratory is not far from here. You can charge, lithium iron phosphate batteries. You can, but you have to put it through the lithium iron phosphate, the charger. You have to put it through that, and then you shouldn't have any problems. Uh, Well, yeah, you know, you have to resort to other ways of heating your house too, right? Like, it depends on the size, how many batteries you have in your system, right? And the thing is, the solar cannot compete with this because at nighttime there's no light. Where this thing will run 24/7, 7 days a week, it would never stop. Where the solar, if you got 12 hours of daylight, then you're lucky, right? And depending where you live in the world, excuse me, you some places in the world don't get much sunlight, right? Where this thing, it doesn't matter, daylight, winter, snow, don't matter. This thing will continue to run 24/7, 7 days a week, and never stop. So that's the advantage of using this to hook up to a solar charge controller and then charge a bank of batteries when it ultimately runs your house. And in my locker, I've got three 3,000 watt or 3 kilowatt chargers. Yeah, yeah, solar will never be reliable. Yeah, the parts are easy to get. Like half this stuff I got from Home Depot, Canadian Tire. I 3D printed the rest. Um, the wood I buy at Home Depot. The wheel that I use as the rotor, it comes from a walker. You know, the walkers for the elderly. I use one of those, and whatever rest components I order on Amazon. So all the parts are easy to get. And I treat it with this system. You won't see MOSFETs. This is an analog system, and that's what Eric Dollar talks about. In order to get true power, true electricity, the second you put it through a MOSFET, it kills the electricity. You lose the properties of the electricity that's being generated. So the early generators were analog. There were no MOSFETs and all this kind of stuff, controllers and stuff. So he says if he were to rebuild the grid system, his system would be 100% analog, because you can't create a proper true frequency using electronics. It can only be done analog only. And that's how this motor is, it's analog. The only electronic thing I think I have on the damn thing is my reed switch, is a proximity sensor from a 3D printer. Works well. That's pretty much it for my electronics. Everything else is all analog, right? So my batteries have totally recovered. They're at 24.9 volts. They went down to 24.7 volts after an hour of work, and I've shut it off, and the batteries have totally recovered. So, Mercury arc valve. I've heard of it. I don't know too much about it. Sorry. Mercury, I kind of stay away from because of the health issues. Mercury, you got to be very careful with that stuff. Mercury vapor can be fatal if you inhale it. It's not good for you. So I kind of stay away from the mercury stuff. Yeah. So the next thing for me is I gotta raise some funds. I gotta buy the batteries. The batteries I need 3 more of those motorcycle batteries. They're about 60, they're like $70 each. So I need 3 more of those. And after that, then I got the batteries I need to do the build. Then I gotta buy terminal blocks. They're about 20 bucks a set. I probably need about 4 of those. Then I need voltmeters, digital and analog voltmeters. I haven't decided what way I'm going to go. I might go with a digital, looks better. Amp meters, so I can have a control panel in the front. I'll have my amp meters, my voltmeters for voltage in, voltage out, current in, current out. I'll have a full switch panel on the front of the box. Then I gotta get a 3D printer filament to print the chamber where the rotor spins. Gotta buy magnets. I gotta buy another transducer, that's 30 bucks. So yeah, it takes money to do this stuff. So, the more I can generate through Patreon and give you all the benefits of what Patreon is, all my schematics, all my ideas, all my drawings, concepts, some videos that I don't show on YouTube are in there. Special exclusive stuff. I go to more depth on the spark gap switch and Tesla, how he refers to spark gap, how you can use magnets to actually enhance the spark gap. That's all in there too. Tesla was working with that as well. It's called spark quenching using magnets. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff in there, so well worth it. A couple bucks a month, that's great. That's awesome. I've had people give me more than that, but $2 a month is cool. I'm cool with that because every little bit of support I get, I can build this stuff faster and get something that's like commercial, and that's what I'm going for now, is to build something that's actually commercial. And my wife did this for Christmas for me, so my Faraday Research hoodie. Yeah, so that's about it. If you guys have any more questions, let me know now, and I'll call it quits. I gotta make my lunch for tomorrow. I'm gonna be up at 5 for work, so. Well, the donation is either through Patreon. I think the lowest donation you can do is like $2, and then you get all my schematics, some videos that I don't post on YouTube, that are visible, that are only visible within Patreon. So you got that. PayPal, I also have PayPal, so you can also donate through PayPal as well. Just like anonymous donation. Yeah, so whatever, right? Whatever you guys can afford, if you want to see this go forward. And I'm pretty transparent with this stuff. Theory-wise, well, I have theories that I've posted in Patreon how this thing actually works, but it really is centered around the spark gap. Yeah, I know. PayPal does charge a fee. They charge a fee just for the transaction. Like, what was it? $4 and something. Yeah, 4 something they charged me for that. But Patreon's the best way to go because Patreon, they don't really charge me a fee, which is kind of cool. Well, actually, very little, less than PayPal. I think it's like less than half. So that's why I like Patreon. Patreon's easy to use. So yeah, I try to keep that up to date. Yeah, so. Any other questions? Anybody have any other questions? We got 10 people logged in. Don't be afraid. Just, I don't care if you think it's a good question or not, just shoot it past me. You never know. There's no such thing as a stupid question. But yeah, it's this why I call it the RPG. I call it the reactive power generator because it's generating reactive power, and then after I synthesize it, dump it into the capacitor, and then it's real power. But before you do that, you have to put it through a full way bridge rectifier. I got one hooked up now, so I'm gonna probably hook up a second one to smoothen it out even better. So I got these guys here. That's the full way bridge rectifier, so get a few of those. This one I think can handle 40 or 60 amps or something like that. So they can take a beating. Yeah, they're good. And these are only like $3-4. They're not very much. Spark gap switch is the 4-pin automotive relay switch. In Canada, we get it from Canadian Tire. You can get it from an auto parts store. Those are like $4 or $5. Get the 4-pin, 4-pin. And what I like about it is this. Yeah, you could see ultimately in the end when I get this thing done, I'm gonna have probably maybe a 2-foot rod, copper rod, and that's gonna be my earth ground, which would actually help the circuit out because I can start pulling electrons or current from the ground into the circuit. So I would actually wire up a master ground and actually hammer that 2-foot long piece of copper tubing right into the ground with probably like a 14 gauge wire and hook that directly to the box as a earth ground. Earth ground's very important. Yes, good point. I'm kind of limited in my resources here in the apartment, so I can't really do it here. But outside your house, you can put a 2-foot rod, the copper rod, right into the ground, 14 gauge wire attached to it, and hook it right into the box as your master ground. That's probably the best ground you'll ever have. So using it as a common ground in the house, I wouldn't recommend it because it's so parasitic. There's so much dirty frequencies going through it. It's so bad in some countries you could actually pull a voltage off it. So yeah, live negative is earth ground. Yeah, you can actually pull power from the ground. There's another experiment I'm working on right now. I'm actually in contact with Matthew Rife, Earl, John, Earl James Rife, the guy who came up with the Rife machine, which was a guy back in the 1930s. He was curing illnesses by using radio frequencies. Well, I'm in contact now with his great, one of his relatives, his present day relative. And we go on Bernie's channel, and we had actually a really good show there on the weekend with Rife's great, I guess you could say, great cousin. His name's Matthew Rife. So he is related to the original Earl James Rife. So he gave me a few pointers on earth ground and actually attaching coils and putting them in the ground, and they'll actually self-oscillate to the Schumann resonance of the earth. So he's made some pretty amazing coils. He's done his homework, definitely. Yeah, I believe you could do a larger donation amount. I think the lifetime. I think there's a lifetime membership. I believe it's $300 Canadian, $350 Canadian. Look in the description in Patreon for the types of memberships. I think Tivon and his wife donated a little bit more money. Was actually a lifetime donation. There's not too many other options other than PayPal. You can send me whatever through PayPal. I know I had one person send me a pretty good chunk of money before, and I think I lost about $40 on a transaction fee for it, but it was still a good amount of money, right? I don't get those too often, but from time to time I do. Um, but yeah, it's your ultimately in the end, it's your choice how you do it. You know, I'm just grateful that I'm getting donations, right? Building in the UK got big rods in the ground. Yeah, that's yeah. More ground you have, the better. Other than using the grid system ground, that's parasitic. Stay away from that. You want an earth rod. So I'm just saying 2 feet, 24 inches. You could go bigger. You could go 48 inches long, hammer it right into the earth. Find a good spot in the backyard and just hammer it right into the ground. 14 gauge wire, even a 10 gauge wire. Actually, thicker is better for ground. And yeah, you're going to get results, especially if you're doing Tesla experiments. And the earth ground for a Tesla circuit is essential. So, yes. The Warden Cliff Tower, I think, was what, 800, no, 600 feet tall? And Tesla's grounding system was almost twice that at the Warden Cliff Tower. It was a massive ground. And he actually had ground cables going into the ocean from Warden Cliff. So his grounding was extensive. Probably spent more money on the ground system than he actually built it on the tower. Because he's using the Schumann, the Earth oscillation, that power from the Earth is huge, especially if you're because the Earth is like a capacitor. We're basically at the bottom of the plate. The atmosphere from where I am. So like if I were to start harvesting energy from the air, it's 100 volts for every meter. So every meter you go up, it's 100 volts. So if you go 300 meters, you're hitting 300 or 3 kilovolts of power. If you go up 600 meters, you're getting 6 kilovolts of power. So what you want to do is if you have a massive ground and you're able to capture, you basically make a connection between the two plates because we're living in a capacitor. And you utilize that, you can harvest huge amounts of power. Huge amounts of power. There's a Ion Research company. They're in Florida in the U.S. and they got 4 big towers. I think they're 340 feet tall, and they're using a graphene battery. Yeah, we're protected because we are on the ground. We're grounded to that plate. But see, airplanes, I don't know if anybody knows anything about jetliners. The jetliners, they got these round discs that are on the fuselage all over the plane. These round discs, they're called static charge discharge plates because the plane's flying through the atmosphere. The metal on the aircraft is storing a huge amount of static potential in the air, kilovolts of power. Those static plates basically remove that static charge from the fuselage. Years ago, I used to work at the airport, so I know what these things are. So that removes the static potential that's building up on the aircraft as it's flying. 48,000 feet, that's 48 kilovolts of static electricity accumulating on the outside of that airplane. Now, if a spark happens and there's fuel present, you got a big explosion on your hands. So that's why they have these static charge plates on the outside of the aircraft. They're about 7 inches. Yep. No, not at all. The worst frequency to work at is what in North America we use, 60 hertz. It's probably the worst frequency for the human body. It's damaging, it's parasitic, it's absolutely terrible for the body. You want to get up into the high frequency ranges, like my charged water, my structured water. I'm putting a charge in the water at 528 hertz. So that goes into the water and it's very good for the body, regenerates the body. A lot of health potential with it, right? So yeah, you can look it up, Earl James Rife. You can look up all the right frequencies. It'll give you a list of all the different health problems and problems that you have. It'll give you the actual frequency range, say for like breast cancer or glaucoma, cataracts, stuff like that. They'll have it on the list. Look up what the frequency is, put that frequency into your Rife machine, and expose your body to it, and it cures you. So pretty amazing stuff. So I got the structured water. That's one of my projects. I'm going to build version 2 of it. It's going to be amazing. Like, as soon as I get the stuff, like some of the parts I need or I can't get right now because of all the stuff that's happening with all the trade problems with China right now. So as soon as I get the parts in that I need, I'll be doing my structured water machine version 2. And I'll be doing that hopefully soon. So I'm just waiting for some parts for that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. You could go so many different areas, but definitely the higher frequencies is healthier for the human body. There are frequencies that are not good for the human body, like 900 hertz is what they use for cell phones. Very bad for the body. You want to get up into the kilohertz range where it's safer. Oh, you're in Toronto? Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'm just outside of Toronto. I'm just north of Oakville. If you know where Oakville is, I'm just north of there. 433 hertz. 432 hertz is the other good frequency. 528, 432. Those are the two I use, either 432 or 528 hertz. Somatics, yeah, it's good stuff. You just gotta research it. Oh, you're in Richmond Hill. Yeah. Okay. Cool. You're about 40-minute drive from me. Yeah. I've got friends that live near Richmond Hill. Actually, I got some friends that live in Markham. So yeah, I've lived out in the West End area pretty much all my life. I was born in Toronto, so yeah. But I've always lived in the suburbs west of Toronto. So. Yeah, pretty soon my 50th birthday, so March is the big month I turn 50. It'll be Faraday Research birthday bash. Yeah, Richmond Hill's nice. I have a friend who lives in Newmarket, Markham. Yeah, I got a few people that live in Toronto that follow me. And one of my other friends, he lives in Oakville. I actually meet up with him every now and then. He's a contributor to my channel and stuff, and we chat all the time. And I've made some pretty good friends on this. So yeah, I'm gonna head out too, guys. It's getting late here. I'm gonna make my lunch for tomorrow. I gotta be up at 5. So. Anyways, thanks for joining me tonight. It was kind of unscheduled, but I do that every now and then. So, yeah, thanks a lot, everybody, for your thanks, your likes. And, yeah, I'll be making more videos this week, working on some new projects. Hopefully, get the money generated so I can start getting those batteries. I want to really get going on this new box, on this new generator. So, yeah, thanks a lot, everybody, and thanks for joining me. We'll see everybody soon. Cheers.